The Las Vegas Raiders have finally named their starting quarterback for this season. They're going with Gardner Minshew over Aidan O'Connell. And I'm not going to lie to you. This took me by surprise because with Antonio Pierce being the defensive-minded coach, you thought he would have went with the quarterback that took less risk and was better taking care of the football in Aidan O'Connell. With Gardner Minshew, he is somebody that has a reckless playing style where he'll push the football downfield a lot. He'll take a lot of chances. He'll make a lot of throws that would get a wide receiver fucked up. And with the kind of style of ball the Raiders plan on being able to overachieve with, relying on great defense and a dominant rushing attack, it's very important that you have a quarterback that takes care of the football. And I don't know if you're going to get that out of Gardner Minshew as compared to if you would have went with Aidan O'Connell. Now, I do expect to see AOC start eventually because I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to be consistent enough for Las Vegas that he's going to remain the starter for the entire season. He was only good last year in Indianapolis because of Shane Steichen. And he's on his fourth team in 5 years. He pretty much is the new generation's Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he's a serviceable enough starter to get you by for a couple of games, maybe a season or two, but he's not going to lead you to the playoffs. Aidan O'Connell, I think, has a little bit more upside, and as long as he takes a few more deep shots, he gives the Raiders a better chance to win. The only thing that Gardner Minshew has over Aidan O'Connell is that he's more aggressive, and I guess Antonio Pierce wants to generate more big plays offensively this year. But with Minshew, he's going to cost you a good amount of games because you can't trust him in the fourth quarter. His ball security gets really questionable. Your offensive line, it looks improved on paper, but I don't believe it's going to be as good as what we think once the games start getting played. No matter what, if you went with AOC or Minshew, you would have been screwed regardless if you're Antonio Pierce because you got effed over by the Atlanta Falcons drafting Michael Penix. And let's just be honest about it. The Falcons screwed the Raiders because if they never took Michael Penix and he falls to whatever the pick the Raiders had to select him, this without a doubt would have been a playoff team. And it's hard to sell me on the idea of Las Vegas finishing second in the AFC West with 8-9 wins when you have the worst quarterback situation in the league right now. AOC and Gardner Minshew are backup quarterbacks at best. Now, if you had an offensive-minded coach like a Kyle Shanahan or Kevin Stefanski, then potentially you could overachieve with one of these dudes starting for you because offensive-minded coaches should be able to elevate whoever they have at quarterback. But with Antonio Pierce being the defensive-minded coach and hiring Luke Getsy to be his offensive coordinator, he set himself up for failure this year because you don't have an OC who's good enough to make Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew play at a level that could help you reach the postseason. And that should be the goal for Las Vegas when you remember that last year they won 8 games and they played way better under Antonio Pierce than what they did under Josh McDaniels. But you're going to have a hard time repeating that success you had last year when you're going up against a tougher schedule and you got to go up against way better quarterbacks than what you played last year. The only win the Raiders had under Antonio Pierce against a starting quarterback were the Kansas City Chiefs when they got lucky Christmas Day against Patrick Mahomes and company. Do you know how fortunate you have to be to win a game not completing a single pass after the first quarter? And every time they played a team with a winning record, they always lost. And the games mostly were unwatchable from an offensive standpoint. Gardner Minshew, I get that you have more big playability with him in, but you have more turnovers that are likely to occur with him starting for you as opposed to Aidan O'Connell. But when Aidan O'Connell comes in at some point this season, the knock on him is that he's too conservative, he doesn't take enough risk, and he's not one of those quarterbacks that's good at playing from behind. But this is one of those situations where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, because nobody really is all that good of an option. You know, their plan, I really believe, was to get Michael Penix. And when the Falcons took him at 8, that ruined all the hopes they had at potentially being a playoff team this year. It's a quarterback-driven league, and you're lying to yourself if you really believe Gardner Minshew and AOC can be good enough to get them into the postseason over the Chargers, the Denver Broncos, who have offensive-minded coaches or really good coaches that know how to maximize the talent of their quarterback. And also, you're going to go up against two teams that are going to have better quarterback play than what they had last year. You know that win that you got against the Chargers last year on Thursday night when you got Brandon Staley fired? You won that game going up against Easton Stick. If Justin Herbert would have played and the Chargers were healthy, that would have been a completely different game that had a way different outcome. Just because you had a little bit of lightning in the bottle last year doesn't mean you're going to have that same thing occur this year with how tougher your schedule is. Yes, you are going to have a good defense. Your run game could be pretty good, but you don't have a quarterback that can win you games. You're just asking them, don't lose us any games, take care of the football. You're going up against Lamar, Joe Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert. You're fooling yourself if you think Minshew on his 4th team in 5 years, if this dude had any ability to be a solid starter, he wouldn't be thrown around, tossed around like a rag doll on his 4th team in 5 years. And he doesn't win games. He got beat out by Anthony Richardson last year when most of us thought that AR wasn't good enough to be a week 1 starter. What does that tell you? When you're on your 4th team in 5 years, fam, that means that you're not that good of a quarterback. You're a good backup option. You always see backup quarterbacks on the move. That's why he's this generation's Ryan Fitzpatrick. He may have a few games when he looks really good, but for the most part, you're going to get average to below average quarterback at best. And Davante Adams is probably going to end up demanding a trade with how many hospital balls Gardner Minshew is going to throw him this year. And yes, he is going to throw Davante Adams a couple of those balls when he ends up getting effed up, because he always does. That's part of the Gardner Minshew experience. The Raiders are screwed this year at quarterback. And it's why they're going to finish in last place in the AFC West this year.